I'm not exactly. Yeah, I think red's a pretty cool color. I mean, I was also thinking about potentially. This is a weird one. I was thinking about white hair.
Ooh, yes, yes. Oh my gosh, what if you had it white at the roots and you faded it to red at the tips, like a reverse ombre?
Oof.
Oh, wouldn't that just be like? Wouldn't his hair match his skin, and then there would just be like these red wisps floating around his neck?
Shut the fuck up, Fred. Shut up.
No, you see, they could tell me because of my clothes.
Oh,
I'll have a name tag.
I'd fight you right now. I should come to your house.
Actually, no. No, 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 no. You see,
That was so ugly.
as long as the background isn't white behind me, there'll be a me-shaped white spot in the atmosphere.
Oh my god. I
No,
hate
no,
y'all.
but like, in all seriousness, white or silver hair is also a pretty good idea.
Dude, I actually okay, so for my hair, I want like the roots. I want my hair to be like inspired by gemstones. I found this picture of a pink amethyst that somebody carved into a heart on Instagram, and it had these like mossy greens in it, like spots, and then it had like a spot of like a beige-ish color, and then the majority of it was just like really nice. I don't know how to describe it. You know, it's pink amethyst. You look it up, but
Oh no, I know what pink amethyst looks like. Maybe another one could be Alexandrite.
I don't know what that looks like. Just on like name recall. I was thinking
So
about having all the colors though from that. If the colors in the Alexandrite line up, then that'd be cool too. Because I was
yeah,
also thinking about like Labradorite and what else? I don't know.
ooh, star sapphire could be a good one.
See, that would be beautiful. I haven't actually seen a star sapphire, but I feel like I know what that looks like because I've seen other like star gems where like they've been rounded out and the light refracts through it like in like an asterisk pattern. It's really cool. I don't know how that
Yeah,
would be reflected in like hair, but I'm thinking just like the color scheme of like Labradorite. I don't know if there's like a reactive like dye that would like if it was exposed like from the roof, like if I parted my hair or something, it would look like an oil slick. I
well,
want
it's
something like
weird
that.
because with the star sapphire, it's just like you thought. Like there's this asterisk like indentation like in the middle of it. It's like white and whatnot,
Uh-huh.
but that's how, in a sense, you can think that's represented by the roots. The roots are that lighter color, and then sapphire all the way down.
so boys,
Oh, snap. Well, my thing is, I want the roof dark and then to fade to light. But actually, that'd be cool to start at light and then fade to dark.
Yeah, like that's what I'm
It'll
thinking. Like
go out.
for
That's my thing.
neighbors.
we storm an area 51, right?
I
Oh
mean,
yeah, but
after I get
they
my hair
can't take
dyed,
us all at
sure.
once.
Actually, no, before. So we should do it soon. I feel like people are taking this way too serious, though, and like I'm scared that
What?
people are actually gonna go.
I mean, hold on. Let me go to the Facebook event.
Was there actual? Oh my god, I thought that was a meme.
No, there's an actual event on Facebook that people have made.
We're going to jail, boys.
Hoo hoo.
Fuck, where is it?
We're going to intergalactic prison. Period. Period. Pooh.
Oh, apparently I
No,
was at a
intergalactic
wedding.
prison is probably a political mess. I'm just
What?
saying.
Wait, what? Say
Like,
that again. I didn't hear what you said
think
over the
about
crack
it.
area of how you said it.
Whenever we talk about intergalactic prison, which yes, admittedly doesn't come up very much, you got all these different species, all these different languages, all these different kinds of prisoners in there, and no one even thinks about the repercussions. Like, hey, no, why'd you do that to that guy? He's a part of our
Okay,
community.
so
No, 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 no.
the event right now for storming Area 51 has 901,000 going, 782,000 interested, and
We're going to jail, boys.
182,000 shares. So
Yeah, it's still sensationalist garbage, dude. I don't feel
it
too
might
enough
be.
of
It
anything.
might be.
Wait. Let me put a modern spin on this. That is sensationalist garbage. Fake news.
Sensationalist
Fake news. That's all it is.
They're going to build a wall between us and the aliens, and the
We
aliens.
are going to build a dome. The Simpsons got it right. They predicted the future many times. I've seen it. I've talked to psychics. This is where I want to
I
invest
have
my
the
money.
best psychics.
The psychics
I've talked to
understand
psychics,
that a
great people,
dome
very honest,
is
very fulfilling,
the next
and I
iteration
gotta
of a
say,
wall.
man, we're gonna build a dome between
Absolutely.
us and Mars, and we're gonna make Venus pay for it.
Yes.
So I guess you already kind of answered the question, but the question here is, storming Area 51, do you think it's actually going to happen?
Nope, just nope. It's
I
all I
feel like
gotta
there's
say
gonna
on
be
it.
like I feel like there's gonna be like that like dozen people from like across the map
Who actually
who
show
like
up?
have no connection with actual reality, and they're gonna be like, oh, we're gonna be able to get past military and shit. Like, bitch.
You know
First of
what? You know
all,
what? If all the people who have said they're going go, and all the people who are interested go, that's like what That's over 1 million people. I
Okay,
don't think the
here's a
government
bit
has
of
that
an
much
anecdote for
firepower.
that, right? I
well,
got
yeah,
an
but like
anecdote about
also,
that.
it's not like the government would
Oh,
just have stuff open for access. It's not like people can just get there and be like, open it up, you know?
True.
It's like,
yeah.
dude, nobody who goes is gonna be like down with the shit, you know? Like, who's gonna bring, a burner or some shit to actually like enforce, what they want? Because people are just gonna start getting shot if they try to rush a government facility. A and B, if the government hasn't moved everything by now or shifted projects or whatever after the information went live, like what the fuck? Because like we already know now that they have lasers that can detect individual heat signatures and heart rates, at 200 miles or something.
Yeah.
And we just found out about that, and they've been at it. So like, like, do people actually think they're gonna find something if after the fact of like potential casualties being had? That they actually get to where the stuff was. It's not like it's gonna be there how it was. It's if there's anything there, it's probably there to mislead people. So what the fuck? Like, I don't know. I
And
don't know.
here's another way to conceptualize it. I got a bit of an anecdote. Forgot which movie this came from, but there was a part where there was like riots on the streets, right?
Okay.
And there was like 100 plus people in the crowd, and one guy standing against him, and he says, "Nah," and one of the guys in the front is like, "Hey, dude, you're one guy with a gun. You can't stop all of us." And the guy says, "Sure, but I got 10 bullets. So the first 10 of you that come up is going to get shot down." And he stopped the entire crowd with that threat alone. What makes you think 1 million people ain't going to be stopped down just by the threat of a few hundred of them? No, Nate, like a couple thousand of them being shot down by the automatic rifles.
I think that you
None of them
underestimate
wants to
how
take that gamble.
suicidal millennials and Gen Z people are.
You see,
Yeah,
like
but
that's
that's the
just
thing. People are also pussies.
This is true.
yeah.
This is also true. But
Like
at the same time,
that's the thing about
not
the
even
gumshoe
just
thing,
that,
man.
I also think you underestimate the concept of herd mentality, where if there's
Yeah,
enough
but like as
people
soon
and
as some
there's
shit disrupts that, do you know how fragile these modern white knight ass motherfuckers are? Like, dude, you have
I
like I'm sorry for being vulgar about it, but like it let's face facts, okay? The people who make up modern society right now who are coming up and are starting to brace, this next wave of economic growth and sociological, development. These people are pussies,
okay.
especially the ones who are like trailblazing in like specifically LA and New York. Dude, it's crazy out here.
I already know that. I already know that Jayford's answer is going to be no. But have you watched The Lord of the Rings, Josh?
What the
Of
hell
course
I
I have.
have?
You remember that scene at the end
I'm gonna fight you.
where the armies of Gondor and Rohan are completely surrounded and outnumbered,
Yeah,
and
like maybe
Aragorn
one of the best
just
scenes,
runs
and
up,
then the
and then the
eagles come
hobbits
in.
run up forward, and then everyone starts one after the other following them into this suicidal charge. That's an actual thing that happens on a psychological level. If
Well,
one
yeah,
person
the thing
does it, then
about
the
it
herd
is
mentality
here's
will
the
just start
difference.
to take over.
But there's a difference in those scenarios because the cornered that sort of mentality is like the cornered animal mentality where they go on the suicidal charge because they have no other choice. But them going to Area 51 and fighting, that is always their choice. They could at any point decide to just back off and they just go home. You know what I mean?
It's like
You're
there's
not
bigger.
forced
Okay,
anything.
the government
Obviously,
is a big threat to the freedom of the people, But it's like that's only if we give them that power,
I mean,
So like if we give that scheme, then it's not doing anything but hurting us. But what?
Yeah.
I said by definition, the government is a threat to the people, so I don't see what your point here is.
If people go to the government and give this shit steam, it's not gonna do anything but hurt us more in the long run by giving the government more power. Because if we show, people, they're like, oh, you should challenge the government in this direct way instead of handling the government by taking away its power. We're completely avoiding the actual conversation that we should be having, which is like how to reduce the power of the federal government and other forms of government in everyday people's lives. How do we take away their power to do weird shit like Area 51 to begin with? How do we expose what we don't know already? How do we figure out in reference to what we do know what else we already don't know that they could be torturing as we speak? It's
That
like,
is true.
what conversation are we really trying to have here? Why aren't people trying to figure out how people like Alex Jones get power, when they're crazy as shit and say controversial stuff? It's like
Well, that's
you
because
don't get the answers at first unless you're getting it from somebody who's kind of, off kilter. And it's like I'm not gonna pretend that I'm like completely on my axis, but it's just like
we already knew that.
this shit needs to be articulated because we know there's facts to it.
But we do know that there are to all of it.
That's why the Area 51 thing is getting steam in the first place, is because people want to know. People want to understand why there's been secret projects happening on U.S. soil where, the conversation that the Democrats and other, more morally left people are trying to handle, like old stuff. Stuff
Frankly, I
about
can
like giving Native Americans their land back. Like, why is that land not being used for more human redemption? Redeeming the government for its past laws. What's? I don't know. I feel like we can fix some shit.
expect people to redeem the wrongs of people in the past. That in itself is not a good angle to work from, right?
Well, I mean, that's the angle that we've been going from this whole time that people are arguing against on the conservative side. But it's like I have some of the same values, and that's how I see it from, I see it from the other side that supposedly we're against. It's just like we're not against anybody. It's just like some people get lost
This is
in
true.
the programming, of wrapping all these narratives up. It's just like nothing. That's the thing about the conversation is like nothing's really incorrect. It's just the way they go at it sometimes kind of gets things skewed. So it's just like I don't know. I feel like a lot of intersections can be made if we can make the conversation with the whole like, oh, they're hiding stuff from us, like da 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 da. It's just like, yeah, that's
Well,
the
yeah,
government. That's how the government works.
because to be frank, there are some things the government should be hiding from us because there are certain secrets that enemy states can't know. Otherwise, it invalidates and puts
Well, yeah, that's what I'm saying. That's how government works.
situation. But at the same time, who doesn't want to know what the hell they're doing at Area 51?
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
We gotta uncover it. We gotta figure it out.
You gotta
So, like,
figure it out, huh?
it's a smart idea, but it's gonna be the fucking badass idea that's gonna be fun.
I just don't think people should go rushing it because that's just like you don't just try to do that. People
Look,
are gonna get hurt. It's not.
it worked out perfectly fine for the first person who ran into a room screaming Leroy Jenkins, so clearly it'll work for the rest of us.
That's not how it works.
Leroy Jenkins!
I need that to not exist anymore, please.
Alright,
You don't
fine.
make such demands.
Fine, I'll give you a worse headache.
Father, please.
So,
I don't want to get lost in the sauce.
how do you feel about vegans?
I think they're cool. I think they're alright.
I feel that they might not get enough protein.
What if I
Yeah,
told you? What if I told you that I found a wave of vegans all making the claim that eating meat causes global warming? Because it,
Um,
because it requires
I
more
think I've looked into their claims.
because it requires more water per pound of meat than per pound of vegetable.
That's not how it works. Oh my god, never mind. I take back what
No,
I said. I was gonna give him a
okay,
chance.
it is how it works, right? Because you have to water the plant to feed the animals, and then the animals have to drink. So it does take more water, right?
I
But,
know, but that does.
but
How
at
does
the
that?
same time, that's not how any of this works because of the fact
Okay,
that
bud. I know
because
you
of the
want
fact
to.
that water recycles. Like, do we not all learn that in what 7th or 8th grade science at the latest?
I don't want to talk about this anymore. It's making my brain sad.
It's making your brain sad that they're stupid people.
Don't judge me.
Very
Okay.
convenient that my neighbor chooses to mow his lawn right now.
Everything is happening at once.
I know.
Yeah.
I mean, correct me if I'm
Okay,
wrong,
moving on to the
Josh.
next topic.
What?
Moving on to the next topic. Seems like the
Oh,
vegan
are we?
topic didn't really stick.
Okay, if you want to move on.
I mean, I just don't know how I feel about the whole like.
I mean, two. This is item 2 on our list of 3 joke topics.
Sorry, I have water running. Trying to do something.
Because honestly, I figured that. Honestly, how many people really buy into the whole eating meat causes global warming because it uses excessive amounts of water? As if
I
the
don't buy
water
it.
doesn't cycle back through the system. But I guess next we're going to move on to the trendiest fashion statement. I guess it's not a fashion statement. The trendiest rising sale: gamer girl bathwater.
I don't. Oh, well, I don't get why this keeps like being a thing. You know, I thought we understood it like that. But
Okay. Someone
doing
explain
this.
it because I don't understand.
Okay,
Um,
so gamers are.
okay, if you want to move on to the serious topics, then that's
No,
perfectly
no, no,
fine.
no, no. I want to no. I want to hear about this because I don't know what Gamer Girl Bathwater is all about.
Oh, okay. So there's this Twitch streamer called what's her name? Delphine.
Philadelphia. Oh my
Delphine,
god.
and she
I'm screaming. I hate it.
basically she's known for making Twitch streams of her taking baths while cosplaying as different video game characters.
Oh my god! It makes me cry inside. Stop!
And
Oh.
so now what she's done is
Oh
she's
god.
started selling her bathwater for $30 a jar,
I hate this. I
and
hate
she's
that we're
sold
talking
out.
about this. I hate that we're talking about this.
Wow.
Can we
The
please?
fact
Oh my god.
people are this fucking like desperate. Like,
Okay. Oh no.
Holy crap!
okay,
That is the
if
news.
you want to talk about clown world, yeah, we live in a clown world with ridiculous politics where
Oh, Clown
politicians
World.
make
Why are you bringing
ridiculous
that
ideas.
up?
But you know what else is more clown world is the fact that we live in a world where people are spending $30 to get a jar of bathwater
I'm eating
that their
bread.
favorite female Twitch streamer used.
Hello, listeners. I'm eating bread right now.
Oh,
This guy feel like
my
eating
old
bread.
friend,
It's really tasty.
I come
That
to
is how
talk
we
to
do things.
you again.
Also, cheese rolls. Cheese rolls and cheese balls are really good.
She can't keep up with the demand for this shit, though. And I think that, I mean, you know what? God bless capitalism. If she can make a,
Hello.
if she can make money doing that, then she should be able to. But at the same time, what the fuck are y'all doing?
Cheese baked in
What
it
the fuck are
inside.
y'all doing buying bathwater from some girl on Twitch?
It's buttered
Oh
and
my
then
god,
sugar.
dude, that's funny. That's really funny. Literally
That's
buying
pretty
bath
funny.
water.
Pretty funny. It's just
Now,
yeah, it's really
one
really
would
good.
have to wonder,
Or
does I would assume that the bath water shouldn't leave the jar, but what would you
or
even use the bath water for? I assume it'd be a
well,
novelty.
let's see.
People are drinking it. Ah, I
People are
hate
drinking
this.
it. I found a video actually. This guy boiled hot dogs in the water.
Oh,
What?
You know what? At least he boiled it so it was sanitized.
Why did he
yeah,
eat
that's true.
them?
That's true.
Yeah, he did eat them
Why? Oh my god.
because
I,
people are gullible.
I hate this.
Okay, but you know what? Here's something, man. Her profit margin is insane.
Yeah, because the only things she has to buy to continue doing this is small
Jar.
jars and her water bill.
Yeah, a mere fraction of her water bill.
Yeah,
I
like
mean,
I hate it.
seriously, the cost to get like
I should
a
start
obscene
selling my
number of
bath
those
water.
jars is worth the price of one of those jars. You pay $30 to get a ton of $30 jars like bath waters. Like holy crap! Her
Actually,
profit
wait,
margin.
I might be onto something. My
There
online
you
persona,
go.
is a cute anime weasel. I should start selling my bath water to furries.
I'm screaming.
Ooh, that's competitive right there, Fred. That's competitive. I
Ow!
think you've
You
got
heard
it.
it here first. I'm copywriting it.
Damn. Well, no, you don't know what to copyright. I'm going to call it furry weasel bathwater. Boom. I
This
copyright.
is
Ooh,
me cringing. I'm cringing right now eating bread, guys. I'm eating pandesal. I recommend cheese rolls and cheese balls. They're so good. I talked about them earlier. Oh my god. I don't want to talk in the background anymore. I want to talk over this topic now because I want to move on. Can we move on?
would you cringe less if I talked to you about refugees?
Ah, yes. Please move on.
Like
You heard him.
refugees trying to come to the U.S. You know who my favorite refugee is right now?
That was like spiritually exhausting. Jesus Christ.
I don't know. I rather enjoyed that conversation.
Oh
Yeah,
my god.
actually not that bad, man. I mean, Fred literally found a spark of brilliance out of it. I think this
I
was
did.
a
No, the reason why I hate it is because like I love it. You know what I mean? Like I fucking oh.
You furry.
I kind of just want to delete this podcast. You know, like this entire like this moment that's been happening.
Too late. It's on the internet.
I don't want this anymore. This isn't. I
How
hate
many?
it.
Do you two remember who Tommy Robinson is?
I don't even know who that is. No.
I do.
He's the British guy who basically got arrested in England for
Okay.
releasing an article exposing the Muslim rape gangs and saying, "Hey, there's a problem with Muslim refugees creating gangs where they kidnap British girls and sell them off as sex slaves, and this needs to stop."
Wait, like
Right?
is this just now like becoming mainstream news? Oh wait, no.
This became
He's being
mainstream
arrested.
Yeah,
news
this
like
is
a while
what's
ago.
that?
This was like a couple of years ago. But
Oh, no.
Tommy Robinson recently tried to run for office, and he failed, obviously. Otherwise, he wouldn't be applying for refugee status. And now the British government, is essentially trying to lock him back up in prison for not for doing anything wrong, just because they don't like him.
This is I don't like it.
What's
They're
the
trying to
pretext?
shut down all of his bank accounts and whatnot. The pretext is that he's a person that the state of the British government doesn't like, and he ran for a party that the state of the British government doesn't like because he ran for the UKIP party, the United Kingdom Independence Party, which is the party advocating for Brexit.
Wow.
Okay.
But
Wow, I'm still reeling from that
And
other conversation.
he's officially applying for asylum in the United States of America.
right.
Should
A
we-
logical conclusion.
I mean, hey, I think we would be blessed to have Tommy Robinson here.
You don't think so too? And Nigel Farage,
Yeah,
I don't think we would arrest him, so there's that.
yeah. Actually, they did recently arrest him, and they're trying to charge him for the
Who,
same crime
Nigel?
that he already served time for. By the way,
Nigel?
no, Tommy Robinson.
Oh, snap. I thought, oh, okay. Sorry, I
Crime
got
that he
confused.
already served time for, which was basically hate speech, because he printed an article that about the Muslim race.
That's not hate speech, that's journalism.
Yeah, but the British government didn't like it, so it's hate speech.
Oh my god. That's crazy.
It is crazy, and this is the world we live in now. Welcome to reality. People back in the 80s thought by now we were going to have a perfect utopia, and we were going to be
Wow.
using flying cars, and we would have machines that we would just push buttons and it would give us food, and we'd
Life
have robots
really
doing
imitates
all of
art.
our jobs for us. But no, we live in a world where if you say something the government doesn't like, they will deperson you, essentially.
Life imitates art. Orwell, you did the damn thing.
George Orwell sitting there up in sci-fi heaven, sitting there going, "I fucking told y'all, but did y'all listen to me? No."
Artists really be on some shit sometimes, and I'm not mad at it.
I mean, and if you talk about other shit okay, gosh, I feel like you have some big guns to drop on this topic right here. Or he doesn't.
I'm gonna cook some beans.
You're gonna cook some beans mid-podcast? That
Yeah.
sounds pretty lit. I'm concerned for Josh, actually.
How come?
Because you weren't responding. I sat there and asked if you had something to say about this.
Oh, I must not caught that. What I say about the man who
Where's your
just got
mind?
arrested here for all this, or about something else?
He got arrested for all of this. Basically, he's being charged a second time for the crime, air quote crime, that he already served time for.
The crime of quote unquote what again? Be very clear about that.
The crime of journalism.
It sounds like you're saying doodlism.
It does. And speaking of other people in the United Kingdom, because apparently the UK is just going to keep blessing us with stories. There was have you seen the video of the kid who was pulled out of class and given a talking to by his teacher for saying that there were only two genders?
No. Was the conversation caught? Like recorded?
Yeah, he recorded this, and then he got
snap.
suspended.
Oh, what?
And this is like something that happened a couple weeks ago.
Whoa, I did not hear a single thing about this.
It was like all over my Facebook, YouTube feeds.
I don't go on Facebook. I don't really.
I know
I
for
like anything wrong.
because I know I've seen the Facebook arguments you get into.
Yeah, but I haven't been on Facebook in like what, a week?
Oh, that is fair. Well,
I
this
don't
was
go on
before.
Facebook like frequently. If I go on it, then it's like a rare occurrence, and I'll do it like maybe a couple days or something. But then I'll like bop.
Right. So first, let's talk about the fact then that this kid got suspended for saying there are only two genders. How do y'all feel about
What was the context that he said it in?
this
Was it in response?
this teacher was going over a lecture where he was talking about how there are all the genders in the LGBT community, essentially.
What?
Yeah, this teacher was teaching.
How was he talking about that?
Why?
Yeah.
Fuck if I know. Apparently, it's part of the curriculum or some shit. Because this teacher was going over it in class, and this student sat there and was like, "Well, I disagree."
That's crazy as fuck. And as a kid, you're supposed to be able to disagree with the teacher.
And he got kicked out of class.
That shit is crazy.
And then lectured to by his teacher about how what he said wasn't inclusive.
I don't know. I need to stop cussing so much.
No,
I keep
this is
forgetting
something
that
we
we're
should
going live.
actually get angry about, though.
I mean, like, but okay, this is the thing. Like, I want to be calm about it though because I know people who have like been through this shit, and I, oh my gosh. Okay, so like one time I was dealing with like gender dysmorphia shit, right? And I was
That's
wearing
true,
like
because
braces and shit.
happened to the three of us at undisclosed charter school.
Oh, fag.
That was the funny part, because I was trying to type the name of our school and it replaced fair with fag.
That's the
Yeah.
nickname. Like, literally, it doesn't matter if you're gay or whatever. Like, you're gonna call this place OFAG. Like, that's just how it is. Whether you know it or not, people are gonna be calling it that. So, don't be pissy about it. Whoever's listening.
I'm sorry, Principal Rainey. We love
Shut
you.
up! Don't expose him. Listen, he's doing good things. He's trying to do good things. The school could be better, but I
I
think
mean
he's
that
pretty
wearing
good.
a kilt went against their cross-dressing policy.
Wait, what?
Oof.
I've told you this story
I
dozens
don't
of
remember.
times.
Don't remember it.
Do you not
I would.
remember last school year when I sat there? I was like, you know what? Wearing a killer kilt made out of jeans material doesn't go against the uniform policy as long as it's 2 inches below the knee, which most kilts are. And
So,
as long as I wore like tights underneath them, which I have tights, don't judge.
I
It
wasn't
would be
going to.
perfectly fine.
So, like, I was just gonna ask what material the skirt would be in.
Yeah, jeans material.
Oh, okay. When did you wear it?
I didn't wear it. I talked about wearing it, and he pulled me out of class to say that went against their cross-dressing policy.
There's a cross-dressing policy. That shit is hilarious. Ugh.
We
Sorry, I had
went
to
to the
burp.
weirdest school
Burp
where
or
the
whatever the fuck.
principal was religiously conservative, and all of the teachers were stupidly liberal.
It was like if you could do it without him seeing it, nobody gave a fuck
at,
with
at
anything.
least, at the very least, you can say that he doesn't discriminate.
I don't get it.
True.
On
What
the
do you mean?
grounds of politics, he doesn't discriminate because lots of his teachers tended to very clearly disagree with him on many, many things.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And there were some
I don't
good
know. I thought he
teachers
was
at
great
that
though.
school. There were some very good teachers at that school. And then there was DK.
Oof.
I don't know what that is, but I don't need you to elaborate.
Do you remember the English teacher, DK, the lesbian one who got married?
Oh yeah. What's wrong with her?
She was a special breed of crazy radical liberal.
Was she? I thought she was pretty cool.
She was pretty cool if you didn't get on her bad side.
Yeah.
I felt like I was on her bad side, but like she liked me anyway. Cause like I did a photo shoot with her one time. It was pretty cool.
She tolerated me.
Yeah, I was tentatively on a good
A lot
side.
of people can just tolerate you. Fred. It's no secret. It's not like a new thing.
Okay, fine. But what about... Oh, but now, I'm gonna steer us sharply back on topic. This kid that was suspended for saying there are only two genders has now been expelled.
Oh, what? Did it just happen? Like, did you just get a
Yeah,
notification about it or
no,
something?
no. This is something that happened, like, this week.
Ooh.
Oh,
Basically, what happened is all of the staff from the entire school district got together and they sent him a letter basically saying that they can't work with him anymore because he's unteachable.
wait. So he's
Keep
been
in
from
mind,
the district?
this is his first offense of doing anything wrong. all he said was that he thought that there weren't more than two genders, and he's been suspended ever since. He hasn't been on campus at all,
Wait, so is he out of the district or out of the school?
out of the district.
Mm,
Dude, what? Wait, so they're basically exiling him to another
Basically,
city or another district.
yeah.
Bitch, what the yo, that do
Basically,
you
this kid has to either move or go to or go to private school. And since he was at a public school, I imagine his family can't afford private school.
what the hell? And it's
ooh,
not even something that
homeschooling.
you can be
Which,
like,
if I recall, private schools are held in England.
that's crazy, dude.
It is
Where is this?
um southern UK, not London, but it's a town close to London.
Ooh, okay. It's not even on U.S. soil where this happened.
Yeah, I preface this by saying that this happened in the United Kingdom.
Yeah, I was
Ah,
just curious
okay.
about which like
That's
part of it.
interesting. Yeah, that's unfortunate. But, that's just the way of the world, man. Because that's what school is. It's the standing theory. School is meant for
Programming
steering children in a
us.
particular way. It's
You know what?
propaganda.
I feel
It
that.
tries to it tries to have everyone be assimilated into this line of thinking. When you don't assimilate, you see, when they say that kid's teachable,
They
you
mean that
see,
he's not brainwashable.
right, yeah, he's obstinate. He's not someone that can just be led around. He's a kid who learns. He's not the kid who listens without reasoning, which, yes, strictly speaking, is a good thing. It got him kicked out of the school system, dude. Now, like, I would want to know more about the nature of the child because maybe before this even happened, he had traits of like delinquency or whatnot, or maybe he had a lot of classroom outbursts. Maybe this was just like the thing that turned it over. But if that's not present, then yeah, this really does add to the
Oh
conspiracy theory that
shit!
school is a farm for having everyone be put into this sort of propagandic lineup right here, into this sort of way of thinking that makes them subservient and predictable and sensitive and weak, in the
Yeah,
ultimates.
and that is kind of what we see happening. The, we've all seen this happen because of unnamed friends, right? We've seen this live in action happening to people. We've seen how this toxic line of thinking corrupts people into
It screws
thinking that they
people
can't be
out.
friends with others because of political
Mm.
differences.
Yeah, political
Now,
differences,
I'm
dude.
gonna real quick correct myself on air because I just looked up this case, and this kid's not from southern England. He's from Scotland.
He's from
Oh,
Scotland. Okay, good. All right. Well, that
sheesh.
doesn't change much in my mind, but at least we're
It's not
correcting
a
it now.
it's not a big difference considering the entire size of the island is roughly the size of the distance between San Diego to LA, which is not that long of a distance to us. Then again, that might just be because we live here.
Well, yeah. Did
And
you
to
guys
finish,
know that? Did you
to
guys know
finish,
that California has more of a budget than most countries?
yeah, it does because we have a lot of like multi-billion-dollar tech monopolies that are in California,
Mm-hmm.
and the
Yeah.
fact that most of Hollywood is here means that we get a lot of money off of the film industry.
Yeah, not to mention Silicon Valley.
Well, yeah, but those are the tech giants that I mentioned earlier.
True, true. That Hollywood, there's also just a lot of tourist and residential value to it with like the
Yeah,
real estate economy and the beaches and whatnot. I
because
mean, that
California
and
is
we
like a
also have like the good, yeah, plus the good amusement parks. I mean, California is that just proverbial center of it all, so to speak. And
it's
we even
groovy.
hold LA. I mean, LA is as popular and infamous as New York City, man.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like all that being combined, like, oh yeah, no wonder. I mean, we're just a hot spot, even by U.S. standards. I mean, we're more popular than freaking Texas.
Yeah, I have to admit to that, even though I love Texas.
Yeah, I mean, I like Texas too. Sure, they can be harsh, but Texas has got its good sides, like NASA, man. Oh boy, I will always respect Texas for NASA, bro.
All right, so have either of you heard
Wait,
about
what do
what's
you? What's Texas have to do with NASA?
NASA's centered in Texas. Uh, and not only that, but as a direct result of that, there are a lot of programs based in Texas, Texas with science and math and all that, that help prepare kids for,
Huh.
freaking going to NASA, being an engineer, being a freaking astrophysicist, being an astronaut, what have you, right? And so Texas, in spite of whatever stereotypes may have, no, SpongeBob, Texas is not stupid. Texas is very smart.
Yeah, Texas is actually one of the most well-educated places in the U.S.
I
Yeah,
didn't
like
think that
at least
Texas
top
was a
10 in the
dumb
states.
place. I
At
was
least
just
top
curious
10.
about where it intersected.
Yeah,
Because like comedy is always based in like truth. SpongeBob and Patrick were like the typical interpretation of Texas, like you were just saying. But Sandy is like representing the real
yeah,
version of Texas, which is kind of funny.
Yeah, like Sandy is like smart. Like I think there's even like scenes where she put on her glasses and whatnot. She actually gets down on the table and does real smart stuff.
She
Like
be
she
doing
is a
like
smart character.
science.
It ain't Squidward. It ain't Mr. Krabs. It ain't freaking Larry the Lobster, bro. It's Sandy Cheeks.
Ain't freaking Larry the Lobster. Who you think it is, boy?
yeah.
Okay, enough of that. Fred was going to have a segue to the next topic.
Oh, yes. So carrying us back into international topics, I assume you guys know where Hong Kong is?
Because I'm black.
Yeah,
Huh.
Hong Kong. Just it's a city in the Chinese province.
Now, for
Yes,
a bit of
because I'm black.
historical context for
Mm,
Jayford, Hong
disgusting.
Kong has always been somewhat independent from the Chinese mainland. It's always held a certain air of, well, not being governed directly by the Chinese government. Even during the great dynasties before the British showed up,
Autonomy. That's the
yeah,
term.
it's always had
It
a certain
holds
air of
autonomy.
autonomy.
Yeah.
And then when the British came in, they made Hong Kong their headquarters, which basically meant that Hong Kong was under British rule. And then after the British Empire fell, Hong Kong has been in this awkward place where they're not ruled by China, but they're surrounded by China everywhere, and they're just a single city.
Mm,
So they just
And
want to be
yeah.
like their own country, basically.
yeah, they do want to be their own country. And in recent years, China has been increasing how strict they are over the city of Hong Kong. And recently, that's broken out into riots and protests.
Oh, did they now?
It sucks.
There's riots and protests in the streets of Hong Kong, protesting the strengthening of Chinese power over them. And we're not quite sure at the moment, but there have been sightings of Chinese troop movement sending military forces to Hong Kong to pacify them through force, theoretically. At least I assume that's why they would be sending tank and infantry formations to a city with protests in the streets.
Hmm.
Is a brutal display of force. Now, I know that Josh has a lot of historical context on this. Jayford a lot less, but that's probably only because Josh and I are avid students of history.
I'm
How do
not
you
interested in listening, to be honest.
what do you think about this situation in Hong Kong? Do you think it's stable, and do you think that they deserve independence?
I think that with the state of the world right now, it's a situation where you cannot really have true independence. Because even with things like North Korea is, for example, this last bastion of real independence. Every other sort of country, if you will, that isn't a major superpower is relying upon their neighbor countries. And I feel as though Hong Kong trying to have independence is sort of a farce because we look at it from the situation of they do win, they do get their independence, which is unlikely, by the way. I will say that. What do you think comes after? What comes after is suddenly they have to figure out how are they going to be self-sustaining? How are they going to get their own economy? How are they actually going to not only build an economy, how are they going to have people come in and out of the country? What's their appeal? What's the jobs? Are they going to be able to build up any military? They have to deal with worldwide politics. There's so much infrastructural shenanigans that go on here that really being on your own is overrated compared to just having a title like Chinese province. However, what I will say is that depending on how they build their political system, it could be favorable considering that China has a bit of an absolute rule right now. They have more or less what you consider dictatorship. In recent times, I forget the name of the guy who runs it all. Yeah, I'm always bad with remembering the Chinese names, but he actually recently just took over the entirety of the government because he can. All of the parliament within the Chinese government, all of the committees within the Chinese government, and whenever there was protests, they got suppressed immediately. And Hong Kong doesn't want to be a part of that, and I get that. So what Hong Kong should try to do instead is actually have talks with other countries that fit their political ideology rather than just try to be their own individual thing. The only way they can be individual is if they actually align with other democratic countries. They align with maybe the UK, maybe the US, maybe something close to home like South Korea. But that's the only way they're going to be able to get this done, reasonably speaking.
And that's a fair point, right? We do have this nation that or city that wants to be independent, but I don't think they can actually do that without the help of a larger government. Now, I think they're lucky here because the U.S. already protects one of the islands that used to be a part of China that decided they didn't want to be a part of China anymore.
Yeah.
However, one of the most prevailing theories for what might start a World War III is the fact that both Japan and the U.S. have signed defensive pacts with this island that's decided they don't want to be part of China and they don't want to be a part of Japan. And so if China tries to take that place by force, then that will set off a chain reaction that will cause Japan and the US to go to war with China, which will then cause Russia to have to choose between China and the US, which will then end up dragging most of Europe into the war, which will then drag a lot of other countries, India, Canada, Mexico, into this war. So the question from a geopolitical state is, does this increase the risk of nuclear war?
I don't believe it does because it's not in the nuclear context. Now, sure, having Hong Kong try to be independent and
first world powers.
Well, it does involve first world powers, but not within what you consider a first world context. Sure, they're trying to become an independent nation, but that's not going to warrant nuclear war. They're not going to resort to that because, let's be honest, guys. Sure, there's a domino effect here, but the problem with this particular domino effect is that at any point in the dominoes falling, they could just cut it off right there. Like, for instance, when you were saying, oh, Japan and America, and then if that happens, Russia's going to get into it. What if Russia simply says, no, cut it out, kid? What if the UK says, no, cut it out, kid? I mean, we're in a communicative world right now, and everyone knows that everything is at stake right now. It's scary. And so the standard human law...
Here's the thing. Here's the thing. I actually learned a lot of this from a person I watch because he is a well-known DM for Dungeons and Dragons, and he did a video on the politics of peace. And I actually went into it. Yeah. And I also learned a lot of this from a history podcaster named Dan Carlin, who does hardcore history. And they did a series on World War I. No one thought that World War I was going to happen. No one thought it was going to happen because everyone was so interconnected and reliant on each other for trade. They thought nobody would risk causing that to all fall apart. And the reason that this happened is because Otto von Bismarck, the first, who was the founder of the German Empire, after he conquered Prussia and all of Germany, he realized that he needed to make a stable system and a stable place for his empire to exist in. And so he went about making a whole ton of treaties where everyone was relying on each other, right? Historically, peace exists. Not we tend to think of war as this thing that happens when people fuck up horribly. We tend to think of war as this tragedy that happens rarely. The truth is, peace is the rarity. Peace is the odd flux. And that's because peace in a historical context only exists when some individual is busting their ass to create peace. Otherwise, competing powers naturally come to war.
Oh yeah, that's like actually in a philosophical context. That's what they consider entropy, where things naturally fall into chaos.
Yeah, things naturally fall into chaos. Powers naturally want to compete against each other. And so the fact that we have a peace is not because people have come to be reliant on each other and realize that we're more valuable to each other alive than dead. That was the state before World War One. The reason that we're
Mm.
at peace is because there are individuals who want peace, who are busting their asses to make this peace happen, to make this last. And as soon as one of them makes a mistake, it's all over like that. This peace that we take for granted.
True, true. But I will say one thing. One thing I will say about it is World War One and World War Three are admittedly going to be very different world wars, and this comes from three different angles. This is my sort of counter argument, if you will. Although I do like how fragile peace is within your story here, because I do agree. I find that fascinating.
Well,
How
from
it
a
kind of
historical
refers.
context, what I said is all true.
Yeah, like, and I agree with that. It peace is that sort of upward force that we have to fight in order to maintain. It's not something that comes naturally. And what I will say is there's three angles where this is going to be different. The first angle is experience. We've got two world wars behind our backs, and we do have much more of a semblance of how these things get started. Just the mere fact that you're speaking all that right now comes from our experience as a human culture on what a world war is like. Not one, but two of them, in fact. And so we're going to have more countermeasures. We're going to be able to examine the science, much more effectively. The second thing is when you look at something like world wars, you have to imagine that it's a different world at this point. During the time of World War One, we weren't this communicative world to the same degree as we are in modern day. With the rise of social media and technology and all of these more interspaced political ties, it's a different environment. Now, while the political ties may still be more or less the same archaic method, the technology makes a difference here. Oh, hey, hey there. Sorry. So as I was saying, yeah, the technology and the media makes a difference. We're going to be a lot more communicative or a lot more back and forth and debate because our culture has become much less rugged and much more, what's the word I'm looking for? Parliamentary, if you will. A lot more parlay, if you. And so World War is not as likely to happen. The third thing I want to say about that goes more back into technology, which is that the stakes are different. World War One and World War Two did not have the threat of thermonuclear war. It just did not. It did not have that honest to God impression that we could destroy of ourselves all at once.
And
We
this is
didn't know.
true.
Yeah. But now we do have that impression. The threats are higher, the talking is more prevalent, and we have experience behind our backs. It's not the same world war.
Jayford's just sitting there, probably rubbing his head. His brain probably hurts.
Well, no, let's not say it like that, man. It's not like his brain hurts. He's probably following along for the most part, but this is actually interesting. I mean, see, these are one of the topics that I like to talk about. So suddenly I get to be very
This is one
vocal.
of the topics that we will just bat back and forth forever on.
Speaking of which, Jayford has
It's a
probably
good
sound.
conversation. It's a good conversation. I'm just listening. I'm sitting here
Yeah,
chilling,
no,
listening.
I respect the fact that you're listening, because, like, I respect that, because a lot of people would just. I'm sure at this point, Josh and I have lost a lot of people who have
No,
decided.
I feel like this is the way that people should learn. I think people should learn through colloquializing history, and I think that we need to make sure that we preserve history through word of mouth in a modern way by actually having fields of study dedicated that people can spring off from, and bring um, information along with them for conversations just like this. Because you guys have a passion for it, and I had no idea
Much as I love,
about even like the concept or whatever. So
as much as I love history, the last philosopher who believed that history was a science, created the most destructive ideology in the world.
I mean, like treating it like science. You know what I mean? Like having a dedicated realm of study for it.
The last person who
It's
suggested
insane.
that we should treat history like a science, though, created the most destructive ideology in the world.
You're not talking about Marxism, are you?
Yes, Karl Marx is famous for his quotes that
Yeah. So
history is
I mean, either
science.
way, you look at it and you're just like, okay, we don't do that.
Yeah, like when he said treating history as a science, and like, Marx did a whole lot of that, so I'm thinking this is what he's going with.
Of course, the conclusion of his science of history was that the upper classes always brutally oppress the lower classes, and that nothing gets better for the lower classes while things only get better for the upper classes, which is objectively false, right?
Well, it depends how you look at it, because Karl Marx came, like he was a sociologist as well, and Karl Marx came from that sociological paradigm of social conflict theory. So he always saw things in terms of who had the advantage and who has the upper hand, and that society was this ever widening gap. To use the analogy there, this ever widening gap between the rich and the poor.
Yeah.
Which look at it, lo and behold, capitalism is experiencing that. So
However, what I think is interesting that doesn't get mentioned is that even though there is an objective, right, I cannot deny that there is a ever-growing gap between classifications of rich and poor. The poor are relatively getting poorer while the rich are relatively getting richer. However, the thing is, the poor are still getting richer, right?
True.
It's this everlasting saying, there being more money for someone else does not mean there is less money for you. So while the rich are benefiting more than the poor from capitalism, the poor are still getting benefited directly by the existence of a capitalistic system.
well, the poor are getting benefited, but this is
Okay,
why we counter
we
with
live
a,
in a
a pretty
society
cool
where
little cartoon I saw.
we
I
live in
saw
a
a pretty
time
cool.
we live in a time where
This
the
is
poor have TV. We live in a time where the poor have cell phones. We live in a time where the poor don't have to worry about whether or not they're going to eat any given day. They have to worry about the quality of the food they're going to be eating any given day.
well, no, that's not true,
Unheard of
because
from historical
especially
precedent.
being where we are, man. Being where we are, there are a lot of poor people that wonder, am I going to starve today? Am I going to
But not
be
in America.
paralyzed today because my crippling
We
illness
live
that
in
I
a
can't
lot of
deal with
people in
anymore?
America.
You know what I
There are a
mean?
lot
There
of
are a lot
many.
of poor people who experience their own problems. I don't think that. I think the gap's still wider. I think that what you're referring to is the middle class. I don't think maybe the lower middle class by extension, but the middle class nonetheless. I don't think you're referring to the honest to God, poor class. Like sure they might have some technology on their side, but the same fundamental problem, which is that life is survival, is still just as prevalent as ever. Perhaps even more so because our economy is becoming more and more skewed over time.
I don't disagree with that.
Well, I'm gonna I'm going to very rock. I'm going to rock the boat a little and try to move us on to the next topic I have listed, which is Facebook's new hate agent criteria.
Huh.
Facebook has
Doesn't
said
sound
that they're going to shut down people who are listed as hate agents on their platform in
for
an
what?
attempt to be neutral. In an attempt to be neutral, Facebook has put out an official list of things that make you a hate figure, which will get you kicked off of their platform.
I see.
The first two of which are, and this is really what I want to talk about, you are a hate figure if you advocate for violence against any given individual or group. That's the first one.
Oh,
The second one, right? So if you say that there should be violence or that people should go not physically, but verbally harass any individual or group of people, you will get kicked off of Facebook. The second part is unless said individual is listed as a hate figure on Facebook's guidelines or is described by the media as a hate figure. What is going on where you are, Josh?
What is going on?
Are you on like a rocket ship or something? I think Josh is just so angry that his ears are venting out steam at an unprecedented rate.
I'm not worried.
I am kind of worried, but I'm gonna act like everything's okay. If you think about this, guys, right? Essentially, that's saying the status of whether or not you are a person is determined by the media, because at any given moment you can lose. Right? Their rules say that you cannot assault or harass individuals because you'll get kicked off of Facebook, unless the media says that they're an unsavory character. Now, I don't know about you guys,
yeah.
but that sounds way too subjective to be a rule, because all it takes is
It's dangerous.
figure saying this person is not savory, and suddenly, it's okay to make threats of
Oh
violence
man,
against
that's
people.
dangerous, dude.
What?
I mean, to me, that's society trying to finally expunge those they want excommunicado, you know?
Yeah,
Where were you? What's happening? Someone vacuuming?
Oh, me? Oh, no, I'm riding my bike right now.
you're what?
Oh, I'm riding my bike because I got called into work early, so I wanted to continue this while I'm on my way to work.
Ah,
Oh, okay. I was worried.
we just heard
Yeah,
this
don't
like
worry about that.
blast of air,
Oh,
and we were
Oh,
like,
yeah, when I was grasping for air, it was me actually going up this big hill, dude, with the bike.
okay, but yeah, no. And the next part of the criteria, as far as I'm aware, basically states that at any instance, if you're associated with a person registered as a hate figure or unsavory character, you can get kicked off of Facebook.
if you're associated with them,
If you're associated with them in any way,
so like if you mention
let's say
them,
that you commented on one of their posts.
oh, what? Oh no, that's weird.
Now, I know that we've talked about social media censorship here before, but This is a whole new level of trying to censor social media in a very sneaky fashion, right? This is a whole new level of trying to censor people.
Y'all mess things up a lot for a lot of different people
Yeah,
who don't
and
even
essentially
deserve
what it
it.
says, essentially what it is as long as the mainstream media says that it's okay to harass a person, it's okay to harass a person. But if they're a protected individual, then nah, you can't. You're also not allowed to say anything about protected classes, air quotes, anymore. Which, from an objective standpoint, for me is like, what the fuck does that mean?
That's
But in
just
reality,
weird.
I feel that that means you're not allowed to say anything about people of color. You're not allowed to say anything about LGBTQ, IA plus people. You're not allowed to say anything about Muslims or non-Christians, except I imagine Jews.
Actually, no. The LGBT goes after Jews, doesn't they? Because
Yeah,
I
that's what I'm saying.
know a lot
Because
of people were like walking away from Pride and stuff because like some organizer or like founder or whatever was caught saying a bunch of like anti-Semitic stuff, and it was like disgusting.
yeah, I mean, what do you make of this situation, Jayford?
I'm thinking,
Because like
I
I
don't
know
know.
for
I
me,
think
this feels like a blatant. This feels like a blatant call for censorship against conservatives
mm,
and people right of center, because that's typically the people that get labeled by the mainstream media as unsavory,
mm.
right?
I mean,
I mean, am I crazy to
there's
think that?
no, you're not. There's groups that the media will focus in on, and there's groups that the media will sweep under the rug. And it's like there are groups that are fractured off from one another that the media might divide away for different types of narratives in different scenarios in different contexts. Just to either get views or project a narrative, so their viewers will stay hooked on some ideology that they want programmed into people. And the thing is, like, media and the school system and stuff, it's all starting to kind of congeal into this one type of ideology. And it's like a mix of like Marxism and other stuff. And it's like, I don't know. I guess that's why, like, for my language, I don't try to like make it so, oh, I can't be like Marxists or whatever. Because it's just like there's truth in a lot of these things. And then they just skew a bunch of other stuff to make it fit a narrative. Like the dude who invented Marxism, you know, was trying to set a certain type of narrative off of how he interpreted the world.
Yeah,
And, some like dude decided, hey, let me try to make polygamy legal. And he came up with this religion based off his own ideology. And it's just like, I don't know. The world is right now based on a lot of things that are founded on human reasoning, and I think that's just going to be inherently flawed unless proven otherwise. As long as we keep existing, and I don't know, the fact that the media is trying to take the job of journalism and turn it into this like weird uh, ideology projecting job, that's like pushing narrative along with trying to get hits. I don't know. It doesn't sit right with me. I don't think that can end any way other than really, really badly.
and speaking of media, I want to shuffle the two of us onto the White House summit, which basically Trump had a conference where he talked to a lot of independent journalists and independent content creators. One of which was a left wing journalist. Are you familiar with Vox News?
Yes, I am. Yes, I am.
He's the guy who founded Vox News. and he split off from the company he founded because he thought that their journalistic practices were becoming unethical. And he has been labeled as a radical right wing independent journalist. And that
Whoa.
and a lot of other people who have showed up to this journalistic summit have
Mm.
been have been slandered and harassed once again by the mainstream media. And I think as much as I want to say they're independent companies, they should be able to do what they want. I think we're beginning to reach a point where these companies are obviously trying to slander people they disagree with.
The thing is, people don't know what journalism is. Okay, and in school, people aren't taught, how to differentiate between things that they themselves, in their heads can decide are credible, sources, um, or if it's what's it called, opinion pieces, and it's
Yeah.
all opinion pieces. It's all trying to slander people or project some type of, scenario on people for them to be like, oh my gosh, I gotta feel all uptight about this new thing. It's like all they're trying to do is raise people's blood pressure.
Mm-hmm. I know. And I don't know about you, but it feels to me like this story, Find the Black story, feels to me like an attack, not an objective attack, but a more metaphorical attack on the concept of the American people, right? Because this feels to me like
Go
a
off.
blatant
Go
attempt.
off for real.
This feels like a blatant attempt to me from the powers that be to try and shut down independent journalism and to create this aura around independent journalism that they can't be trusted. They're not real journalists just because they're not funded by a large corporation. Because people, statistically, believe it or not, are getting more and more of their news from independent journalists.
Oh,
People
I bet.
on YouTube and Facebook who are just going out there and reporting the news on their own, reporting
Dude, Elijah
stories that they
Schaefer. Elijah
right.
Schaefer. She is my favorite gay black woman. Um,
Exactly.
she tells me all about what I need to know, and she's funny, and she gets in there and she shows us the nitty gritty, and she says her piece, and then just lets us watch and see what's happening. And it's like with mainstream media, it's like they took the idea of like YouTube, but turned it into like that. I don't know, like the cut up version of YouTube. You know what I mean? Like the beauty gurus and the people who are like making documentaries or whatever. They're like editing shit together, to show like a narrative or whatever. It's like, yeah, that's what you do for views. It's like it's clickbait. It's it's making a story, But
Mhm.
like journalism aspect of things on YouTube has actually been really genuine for the most part. And I don't think they're really I understanding that as a at a professional standpoint, regarding intellectual integrity and actual, you know, principles of journalism.
Yeah.
People haven't adopted that in these professional um, large scale companies in a quite a long time. Like I was just talking about this to someone else. I think 2 days ago, and I was telling them about how people want to talk about issues, in America, like, oh, it's Trump, or oh, it's Obama, and oh, it's this, and oh, it's that. And I'm just like, why don't you just look at the issue itself and try to figure out what it is a symptom of? And you look at this stuff and you try to go back to like what we're looking at now with like all the different ways people can interpret this stuff. And it's just like, if you look at it from just a A to B standpoint, it's like, oh, there's a lie. Like, why can't we just say that there's lies being told, on On YouTube, it's cool. It's chilling. Nobody really cares because if that's the vibe that you're trying to do on your channel, that's cool. But this is network television, and that's where people, in the '40s didn't go to work, just to be like absorbed in whatever was on the screen.
Mm-hmm.
This is like the evolution of like where people went to town square for the daily forecast or whatever. It's just like I don't think these people understand like how detrimental what they're doing is. I don't think they get it as the network headspace gets to them because they can do whatever they want and they're just gonna keep making money.
Yeah, and I feel like at this point it gets to the point of government sanctioned monopolies on information.
Oh, for sure, for sure.
Because if you also think about it, these companies are getting grants from the government to publish news, and they're trying to shut down other companies that are publishing the news, which, by the way, the companies that are publishing news that they're shutting down are not being protected by the government at all, which the government should be doing, A. And B, not only is the government not stopping them from being shut down, but the government has been actively passing measures to make things more difficult for these people,
How so?
including,
Like, do you have an example?
um, for example, they have been increasing the amount of work journalists have to go through in order to be at press conferences. Now, Trump has been fixing that, but before the Trump era, right, you had so much paperwork. And I've watched these people talk about how much paperwork they had to go through to get information from the government so that they could report directly on stories. And on top of that, most of the time, these people who are independent journalists cannot get passes into exclusive events because they only let in large corporations. Plus, we have the fact that the government does fund many of these corporations that make enough money on their own, right? PBS, for example, or not, yeah, PBS makes enough money on its own that the government shouldn't be funding it, and yet we do. So we have this society where the government is saying, yeah, it's okay that you have a monopoly on information because we're giving it to you. That make sense?
Yeah, I don't like it. That's all
I
I
mean,
got to say.
I don't think anyone does like it, but that's the state of reality that we live in now.
I mean, people who are eating this shit up, they like it, and they're the people who are being broadcast. So it's just like that's how the situation is. I don't know what else I'm
Mhm.
supposed to think though. You know?
Yeah. Now, that's the last of our topics, and I am going to assume that we should head out. It was good talking to you two, and I will see about talking with you two about what we're going to be doing next Sunday.
I
So,
enjoyed this.
peace out. Don't get yourself
Bye.
killed, especially you, Josh.
I gotta cover